What's up, y'all? It's Cecil West, Beyond the Harmony, beyondtheharmony.com, back again with the one and only.
Not the orangutan pee-pee, but Jonathan Lickers.
And he used to be a member of ZZ Top, but now we call him Baby Beard.
I am Matthew Weaver.
And this is your question of the week. And speaking of Matt Weaver, I'm usually the guy with the question. John sprinkles a couple questions in there, but Matt came through with a question. And this is a good one. I can't believe we haven't really come up with this one before. But Matt wants to know, what has given you the biggest glimmer of hope for Bone or restored your faith in their situation? John, let's start with you, buddy.
Awesome. First, I just want to get some clarification to make sure we're talking historically and not going forward. Am I correct on that?
This is historically. So I guess if your biggest glimmer of hope is right now, then it could be right now. But this is a historical situation. So I would say the biggest one of all time that restored your faith.
All right. Well, I'm going to take you back to a dark period.
Do you want to do Matt? Do you want to do Matt first? So
Let Matt do his thing.
Let's switch this up. It's Matt's question. Matt, your biggest glimmer.
Remix. I think, yeah, you guys nailed it for sure. That's what we're doing. Like, because there's oftentimes, and I think sometimes the bigger the artist, the bigger the gap between albums sometimes. And before the internet, it would add an air of mystique. And now it just makes people mad. But so yes, I'll go first then. So because what sparked me throwing this question out there was me coming across my exact moment. Because what is it? I'm guessing 27 years. I don't know. When did Creep It On come out, right? So we're coming up on 30 years. So you have 30 years of when were you most hyped or most looking forward to what they were going to do next, or if you felt like they got a bum deal, a bum rap, or like the trio era, let's say. That's definitely because you're rooting for your boys. Basically, at the end of the day, that's all this is. So mine is the really bad, like camcorder 2010. Like before cell phone video of Flesh being released, and they were all in that parking lot, and there was like a bus behind them, and it was almost shot. Like I always felt like it was like shot poorly on purpose. And of course we had like, it's 2010, right? So like we had the Bone board or whatever, but like there was social media, but not like today, right? It was just not, I don't have a good era to like compare that to of like, did we have iPhone 1 or whatever? Probably. I'm sure we had better than that at 2010, but it was almost like, are they leading us on? What does this mean? I'm pretty sure all five were there. And like, to me, it was like, this is what we, at the time for many years before that, my hang up was that with one being in jail, they felt like they didn't all have to be there or couldn't be there. And so I was like, it's this thing we can't control. It's this I was blaming this third party, this entity or this thing. And it was that Flesh was not there. And Fifth Dog or not, I always thought he was super important. I mean, he was the one that was in California and told him to come there. Let's be real. Right. So to me, he's as much of a member of the group as any of them. And so when I remember watching and rewatching the video, and I'm like, okay, this is it. It's whatever was the magic was gone or whatever was stopping them. They were all there. And I remember them all sounding really happy. I think they were even crying. And so for me at the time, I remember like being on top of the world because I've joked with you guys before a couple times that the World Order is not my favorite. And so, like, what do we got to do to get back to, like, was Resurrection the last time they were all together? I'm guessing. And so,
yeah. Well, yeah. For sure.
You know, if you don't, yeah. And so, in my head, I just let myself. That was it right there. So I let myself believe for like a good amount of time between that and like Unify that was when everything was just. We're just getting right back to Resurrection Part 2. Everything's gonna be just fine. There's no need to worry. And that was, you know, I've told you my trials and tribulations of going from Resurrection to Thug World Order or whatever, or that the eras at least, right? And because we had a separate question where we talked about when did you maybe fall off, or when did you back off, or when were you not as zealous? When were you not, you know, when was it not your favorite? And I remember saying that was definitely my era for sure. So that's what sparked this for me, guys. That's that exact moment. It's not even a piece of music. It was that video of like them hugging flesh for sure.
This is kind of a separate question, but I don't know if I'll ever remember to ask you this. So I'm just going to do what we usually don't do and spiral off in a question of the day with some other shit. But of course, you know about the think tank and the changing of all the tracks on that album, and you know what it was going to be and what it was. But the album that actually came out, did any of the songs give you that feeling of this is going to be okay? Like this is old, or was there a track on there that was like, you know, that was acceptable, or did it all kind of just fall into that Unify pile of like, what, you know, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, which, by the way, when I look back on that album now, I'm like, this album's not that fucking bad. But like, it's not what I thought it was going to be. Were there any tracks that you were like, this was the right direction?
I thought that obviously a massive amount of effort like went into Meet Me in the Sky, but every single cut, I remember how did we get, like I had MP3s or FLACs on my iPod of the cuts, right? And to me, they were all light years better than anything on the album. So not really.
Yeah, Facts Don't Lie was the closest one for me, and I remember what's pretty interesting is John and I did a podcast, an episode, a review of this album when it came out, well before Beyond the Harmony, and I remember John and I really giving it the rough. And then we got to Facts Don't Lie, and I was like, this is what the fuck I've been waiting for the whole album. And I don't think I was into the Bone community at that point. So like I knew about the think tank, but I don't think I had all the cuts like actively at that time like that. So when that was the album we got, like I was just like, oh, this is the album we got. So I was like, Facts Don't Lie was the only winner at that time for me. I like a lot of them now, but at that time, like it was Facts Don't Lie. I was like, what happened on the rest of this fucking album? And I was like, if they would have just done that, but, and I think I've talked about this before, but you know, the big fall off of that album is it didn't start with the Ouija voice, man.
Yeah, it had that weird World's Enemy guy.
If they would have come back with the Mr. Ouija voice, everything would have been okay. So, but that's a different conversation for a different time. John, historically, in all of Bone, what was the moment that gave you the biggest glimmer of hope that we were coming back?
So before I give it, let me just show what's happening at the time, because if I say it, it won't make sense if we don't take our minds back, because we live in the future and we know what happened. But you know, after Thug World Order, they had like the greatest hits album. And generally when your greatest hits album comes out, that means, all right, we're packing it in. You know, usually you don't have your greatest hits and then go on to release more albums. I mean, sometimes, but not always. So I'm seeing this greatest hits album come out. I'm like, okay, I guess it's done. And then that THUGS, not the Flesh album, but the Bone Thugs and Harmony Ruthless Records THUGS album comes out.
I always hated that, by the way, that album got called that.
Yeah, it's the album's better by today's standards, but at the time I was just like, these feel like cuts that got touched up.
It was cuts that got remixed, like old, like the way we heard the original Tupac cuts, and then they changed the beats.
Right.
A lot of the same shit happened. So, but yeah, okay. So THUGS.
Yeah, and at this time now, Busy is putting out these, soul albums that are just not what you're expecting to get, not on the tier of Heaven's Movie and The Gift. So, and he's kind of going off praising God and whatever's going on there. So you got that happening. You got this, that reality TV show that we always talk about, Poor Lazy, asking people on the street who their favorite member of the group is. They never pick him. You have glimmers of like, okay, Crazy Bone's doing stuff with Little John and Mystical. And you're like, all right, he's doing good. And there's like, basically in my mind, I'm kind of like coping with this reality of, okay, they're off of Ruthless Records. They're kind of packing it in. We got a greatest hits. We got Ruthless is unleashing the catalog. I was kind of hopeful for that because I was thinking maybe they'll actually put out the stuff we imagine exists. So, and not only that, they've completely fallen off in the rap game. So on another video we were talking about like, why do you keep holding on? I think a lot of people are waiting for the day when everybody would just realize, but then I recognize I'm waiting forever. We want Bone to hit that same, like even when they had the Crossroads, it still felt, that was in 95. So the rappers were kind of still hating on Bone and rap fans were like, yo, that ain't hip hop. That's some singing stuff. That's some R&B stuff. That's some crossover stuff. So like I was dealing with trying to get people to like Bone and saying like, yo, they won the Grammy. Bone won the Grammy and nobody cared. And then getting to the point where it's like, I don't know if I'm ever going to convince the people around me that Bone is great. But I remember the moment we're talking about this glimmer of hope where it's the return to the thuggish, ruggish Bone, return to not quite the East 99 style, but really the creeping on a come up. Everybody was into creeping on a come up. Even Eternal, some like hardcore hip hop fans were kind of like, I don't know, just kind of like singing, but everybody is on the same page that creeping was some, that was rough, raw, and that was real. So I see this video and it just comes out of nowhere and it doesn't even have a real name, but it's a music video and it's called Intro/Fire. And bro, the beat it's like, I don't know if Unique made it, but it sounded like some Unique stuff. It sounded like that dark Eternal era, creeping on a come up era. And then Crazy Bone comes in and it's so ruggish and raw. And there's even like a tinge on the microphone that makes it sound like the vocals are, a little bit too high, but it was perfect for the way it sounded. It had a grimy sound, but it was everything I thought. I was like, oh, okay, this is what people want Bone. And I was just like, yo, Bone's back. There's only 3 of them at this point, but these dudes are back. This song right here, Intro/Fire video, bro. So that happens. And then like Thug Stories comes out of nowhere. This album, it just came out. But that same period of time is when Strength and Loyalty happens. And people say negative things about Strength and Loyalty, but I'm telling you, if it wasn't for Strength and Loyalty, we probably still would, we may not be Bone fans right now, because when that happens, that hope and the restoration of the Bone brand and that like, yo, Bone is back. I'm going through my life and I'm hearing on the radio, I Tried being played daily. And I was loving it. I was like, yo, Bone is back on the radio. And this is still a time when you still would listen to the radio. And so I'm hearing I Tried on the radio and I'm so thrilled, even though, it's starting to get kind of played out, but I'm like, yo, I'm happy that I'm hearing Bone on the radio waves. I'm happy that I'm seeing people knowing this song I Tried, because nobody had been talking about Bone since probably the Crossroads realistically. And really, if you look at the view count, I Tried has more views than the Crossroads has. And so that was my glimmer of hope. And that to me was the restoration of the greatness. You could say what you want about little LOVE. You could say what you want about how Never Forget Me didn't quite hit what it should have hit, and Candy Paint and Bumps in the Trunk, whatever the flaws of the album were, the I Tried music video was top notch. The song was top notch. The song was musical. The pianos, it was on TV. It was on the radio. It was in rotation. Bone was back. And so that was my glimmer of hope. And that same feeling restored Bone so much that it kept me hanging around to this day, because before that intro fire, I was coping with like, all right, my guys are packing it in. But keep in mind, this is the cope too. I was thinking in my mind, like, hey, they had a great run. I mean, at that point, it was like from 94 to 2004, most rappers don't last 10 years. Here we are talking 30 years. But at the time, I was just like, well, it's like having a dog. At some point, the dog doesn't live as long as a human. Your favorite rap group, none of them, other than like Run DMC doing like get-togethers every now and then. I was just like, I guess it's a wrap. That maybe Crazy Bone will be a solo artist, but I just thought they were done. And when Strength and Loyalty came out, I said, these dudes are back and they're staying. So that was it. But it started with that Glimmer began with that music video intro/fire, blew my face away. And I knew they were back at that point, and Strength and Loyalty just sealed it.
Those are two really good answers. When I was going over, when I was thinking about what my answer was going to be, both those things came up. Both of those moments came up in my mind. And both of those are very close to being mine. In fact, it's really hard for me to not say that it's not. Man, it's tough. That when Matt was talking about Unit-5, I mean, I remember the feeling I had when Unit-5 was going to be a thing. I mean, that Flesh getting out like that, when Flesh went to jail and you heard he got 10 years, that might as well have been a fucking lifetime when I was a kid. I was just like, oh, we're never going to fuck, like, what the fuck? So as we got closer and he was going to get released and we found that he was going to get released, like, I just remember being like, holy shit, like, this is real, so it really did feel like things are going to be different, because this monumental thing that most don't make it through, we're going to see come to light. He's going to get out. And then I do remember it around the time of I Tried as well. I remember it blowing up and like, I actually know people that was the first Bone song that they heard. Like there were younger people at that time that I knew, and they didn't, that's was the Bone song that they knew. And I remember that being big, and then being with Swiss Beats. And at that time, Crazy Bone was on the Tupac album. He was on that Biggie album. Riding Dirty had been, pretty big. I got a weird one though. Mine is a weird one, and I don't even know if everybody will remember it. I mean, I think you'll all remember it, but I don't know how much people really think about it, which is in 2014, like mid 2014, they announced Eternal Legends. And there were all these crazy, like the big thing that people hate about Eternal Legends is they were going to do the bidding thing that Wu-Tang did, right? Like the biggest bid, one cut. That's what people hate about the Eternal Legends idea. But it's overlooked a lot. And I don't think what people think about is that they did a double XL interview. They actually talked about this in this. They said that they'd recorded like 100 fucking songs, that there were songs that were going to be with Mariah Carey, Phil Collins, Wiz Khalifa, something about, I think, Chester, or maybe all Linkin Park. It was going to be 2 discs, one all solo shit, one all the features. DeMizza was going to oversee it. And then it's like that announcement happens. They're saying we got bids. We got our first $1 million bid on Eternal Legends, E1999 Eternal Legends, or maybe it was just called Eternal Legends. So all this crazy shit is happening. They're talking about it, and like I said, double XL and shit. Like, publications are reporting on it. DeMiz is talking about it at the time. All that shit happens. It's probably within 6 months. I don't remember exactly, right? Let's say 6 to 8 months. We get More Than Thugs. DeMizza puts More Than Thugs out. DeMizza presents More Than Thugs. And he was the one that was going to be overseeing it. They were saying that this Eternal Legends was probably going to be on DeMizza's label. So it was like More Than Thugs seemed like this is the fucking, here we go. We got the single to More Than Thugs, or to Eternal Legends. And it was fire, right? Everybody loved it. So I think for me, this is the one, because the promises that were made at that time, it finally seemed, and this is probably it coming off of the greatest hits and thinking, at some point they were going to pack it in. I remember a little before this, them almost seeming a little novelty, like when the game remade First of the Month and did Celebration, like it kind of seemed novelty almost to have Bone on it, like, oh yeah, get the OGs on the fucking song that we jacked. So it was like feeling like they were like, they were like legends, but at the time I just kind of remember feeling like, oh, it's MGK brought him on, but Eternal Legends seems so real, and DeMizza was involved, and it just seems so real. And I was so fucking excited. And when Crazy Bone said we got our first $1 million fucking offer, it was like, this is going to be fucking real. Someone offered $1 million. We're getting a double disc. We're getting Mariah Carey, Phil Collins, and Linkin Park. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? So that's it. I love both the moments y'all had. They are very close in mine. Those are probably tied for second and edging on first. But that's my first place. Those are our answers, y'all. Now it's time for y'all to put your answers in the comments below. We got to know, historically, what moment was it that restored your faith in Bone and gave you the glimmer of hope that we were coming back? Put your comments in the comment box below. I'm messing up the outro, but I'm still Cecil West. It is Beyond the Harmony, and we will catch you on the next one.